So I'm sorry for being a little late. I had a crazy tech call that I was trying to deal with, so I do apologize for being late. We had a few more people sign up, so I just want to give it a couple more minutes and see if we get any last minute add-ons. Otherwise, Jim, it's just you and I today. Is on version 8 sales orders. So if you have any questions as I go along, please do not hesitate to raise your hand. I will try to keep an eye on that. It helps to keep you muted because of all the background noise, but if you have a question, most certainly just raise your hand and I will be more than happy to answer whatever questions you might have. So version 8 sales orders, I'm going to go to POS up on top and sales orders on the side. Okay, now the screen that I'm looking at here is going to be a list of all of your sales orders, whether they're outstanding or not. So to know if they're outstanding, you can add in a field called unfilled percentage. So if you do not have that, right-click on your top menu and go to Interface and Page Manager and just scroll down until you find it. And I think it's all the way down near the bottom, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, these are not in alphabetical order, so it's a matter of scrolling through and finding what you're looking for. When you find it, double-click it and then click on the Apply button, and that'll give you the unfilled percentage. Now, like everywhere else in Retail Pro, when you see an unfilled percentage of 100%, that means that nothing from the sales order has been picked up. If you see a 0 in the unfilled percentage, that means that everything has been picked up. So, and you will see numbers in between if you allow customers to pick up partial orders. So say they ordered 5 items and 3 of them came in, and you contacted them and let them know that you're just waiting for the other 2. They decide that they want to come in and pick up the products that have come in. You can sell them just those 3 items, leaving the remaining 2, and we'll go over how to do that a little later on in the webinar. So this list here, it is up to you to keep this list as clean as possible. So when you see that something is at 0% unfilled, you should also see that there's a 0 balance due and a 0 deposit balance. There might even be a recorded check mark here, depending on how you sell these items, and we'll talk about that as well. But the best indication that you can delete and archive a sales order is if you have 0 in the deposit balance, 0 in the balance due, and the unfilled percent also says 0. Those 3 indicators right there will happen for every single sales order that has been recorded, whether you record it through the sales order screen or whether you do it through the receipt screen. So those are the 3 indicators that you can look at. So let's go ahead and make a new one. Now, there are 5 different types of sales orders available in Retail Pro. We're not going to look at store registry or company registry today, but just so you know what those are, they are exactly what they sound like. They are a registry either for weddings or birthdays or babies or whatever you might want to offer as a registry, okay? The difference between the 2, a store registry, their friends and family can only buy products off of the registry from the store that it was created at. Whereas a company registry is shared amongst all of your stores, and the friends and family can buy any of the items off that registry at any of your locations, and all the locations will get updated after the next polling cycle. So that's really the only difference between store registry and company registry, is if you need to share it among all your stores. If you're a single store, they really are the same exact thing. If you have any aspirations of opening an additional store, right now you're a single store, but you have plans to, maybe in the next year or two, open another store, I would recommend that you use the company registry to start with. That way, from day one, the new store can share in that registry. But today, we're not going to work with these. We're going to work with the other three. Now, the other three, we do try to kind of keep them separated based on what they can and can't do. So a layaway, pretty straightforward, is exactly what you think it is. You're going to hold on to the merchandise while the customer makes payments. Once it is fully paid for, you will allow them to take those products. But in the meantime, you're holding on to them. Customer orders are typically items that you normally sell, but you don't happen to have the items they're looking for in stock, or you don't have the quantity that they're looking for in stock. Okay, but it is a line item that's already in your inventory. No extra items have to be added to your inventory in order to process this order. Okay. Now, special order is typically used for anything that you've never ordered before. You may never order it again, but for this customer, you're willing to go ahead and place that order with your vendor because, one, you want to make the customer happy, and two, you know you can order it, and why turn away a sale? So special orders differ primarily from customer orders in the sense that special orders allow you to edit the description of the item on the sales order, whereas a customer order only allows you to edit the quantity and the price of the item, but it does not allow you to edit any of the description. So we're going to start with a customer order first. Now, all sales orders, regardless of the type, require that there is a customer name on it. For the three main sales orders, the customer order, special order, and layaway, it's a bill to customer that is required. On the registries, it's a ship to customer that's required because a registry, just by the nature of what it is, the customer's name that you put on there is the one that is doing the registering, and they're the ones that the products are going to get shipped to or given to at the wedding or birthday or whatever. So, but a name is required on all sales orders. Now, in this version, in version 8, you can pull from your customer database, but you can also manually type it into these fields right here. You'll see that these are editable fields. It is not what we necessarily recommend, but it can be done. Okay? If you manually enter in the customer name into the sales order, when you go to receipt it or record it, it will ask you if you want to add that customer into your database. Ultimately, that's what we'd like to have, is have that customer in the database so we can start tracking the history. So I'll be honest with you, I don't know who I have in here, so we're going to go with Jane Doe. Okay, so Jane Doe is the one placing this order for me. You'll notice over here you have an order date, a payment due, and a total due by. Primarily, this payment due and total due by are really only changed if you're doing a layaway. If you're placing an order for a customer, depending on the vendor, it may take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months to get that product. So you're not going to penalize the customer for it taking longer to get that back from the vendor. Whereas with a layaway, whatever your layaway policy is, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, typically you want them to come in and make another payment before the full time has run out. So you can put in a payment due date. And just like any other date field in Retail Pro, you can manually type it in. Okay, except I need to put a 0 in there. Okay, I can, well, let me try this again. Okay, I can manually type the date in. I can use this little button to use a calendar. Or I can type in, let me put it back where it was, or I can type in plus 14 because I want them to come back within 2 weeks. It could be plus 30, plus 7. The computer will do the math for you, okay? The same is true with the total due by. If your policy is a 30-day layaway or a 60-day layaway, do plus 60, and that will move it ahead 60 days from the order date, okay? So you don't have to try to figure out the calendar. Just put in plus 60 or plus 30, and the computer will do the rest of the work, okay? The SO number is up here. That's going to be important because it's going to be your reference point. Shows you what type of order it is. It also shows who the associate is. So this is who's going to get credit when this gets turned into a sale. If you're tracking cashier and associate separately, the associate is the person that gets the credit for that sale. They're the one that spent the time with the customer figuring out what they needed. If you're not tracking them separately, then they're one and the same. It really comes down to if you pay commissions or not, okay? Depending on your system settings, you may be using your flags, your point of sale flags. I happen to know that I am. So I'm just going to put in here, this is a repeat customer, and she happens to be in the age group of 35 to 45, okay? If you're not using these point of sale flags, then obviously ignore this section. It's probably not even on your screen, okay? Once you have the header filled out, now it's time to kind of shift gears and look at the items. Now again, this is an order for items that you normally carry, you just don't have any right now. So because you don't have any, it's really near impossible to scan that item and put it on the order. So 99% of the time, you're going to need to use this choose edit items. The 1% that is different is if maybe you're placing this order because you don't have enough quantity for what they're wanting. Maybe they want you to order 12 of them and you only have 3. Well, you can go grab one of those 3 and scan it. That doesn't come up as often as you're completely out of it or out of that size or whatever they're looking for. So you go into choose edit items, and either using your search or using your filter. Now I am a filter person, so I'm going to use my filter. And first thing you want to do is clear that filter out, okay? So I know the vendor that I want is BHD, and I know that I'm looking for a size 12, okay? I might even know that I'm looking for a red size 12. The more information you put in here, the more it's going to narrow down your search, but be careful that you don't put so much in here that you narrow yourself out of finding it. So if that happens, start cutting back on what's on your filter until it finds some items for you. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and it brings up exactly the item that I wanted, the red 12. And that red really made a difference. So if I were to take that out of there, and it could be working yourself out, maybe someone put in here that it was blood red, and I just typed in red, okay? Or maybe somebody misspelled red, okay? So now I see all the size 12s that I have from BHD, and in the doc quantity field for the item that they're ordering, I'm going to put in the quantity that they want me to order. And you're going to put that into the doc quantity field. And that's the quantity that's going to get carried over to the sales order. Once I find that item, I can cancel my filter, and I can look up another item if I need to. Always clear your filter. Let's just see what I have size 12 with any vendor, same vendor. So maybe they're going to also order 1 cream and 1 black. Okay, they really like this shirt. It works for them. They want to order it. So once you found everything that they want you to order for them, then click the OK button on the side. That's going to bring back just those items onto your sales order. Now, you'll notice down here you have the subtotal down here. I don't know why, but I don't have any tax set up, so that's why my tax area is blank. But depending on the situation, you may need to change the tax area. You may want to give them a discount, or you may be charging them a shipping fee if you are shipping it out of state to them. Okay? Make sure that you fill in this bottom section if it applies. If it doesn't apply, then at this point you're ready to save this. Now, one of the hardest things for me to get used to with Retail Pro, coming from a retail background, was, in my mind, a sales order wasn't done until I'd taken some money for it. That was just the way that I'd always worked in retail. And Retail Pro won't let you take any money from it until you save the creation of the document. Once you save the creation, okay, you'll notice that your SO deposit button is now available, whereas before it was not. So I'm going to go into SO deposits, and I'm going to click on new. Now, depending on your system preferences, it may automatically take you into the screen if you require that a certain percentage is put down. My system is not set up that way, and so that's why I have to manually click on new and enter in the amount that the customer wants to put down as a good faith deposit. Okay, so I'm going to say they're going to put down $50. Then I'm going to go to the tender screen, and I'm going to show how they're paying that $50. I'm just going to keep it simple and say they're paying cash. Okay, and then I would go ahead and update this transaction. Now, typically, I'm going to recommend that you use the F11 key or the update only key rather than the print update. And the reason being is the printout that you get from this screen is only going to include the amount of their deposit and how that was paid. It's not going to show any of the items, excuse me, it's not going to show any of the items that they're ordering, nor is it going to show their deposit or their balance due. And that balance due is, to me, is really important for the customer to walk away knowing. So don't print from here. Once you update, click on this back arrow key and print from the sales order screen. Okay, and you want to do all items. And I'm just going to use that first one right there and hopefully preview it. There we go. So this screen very boldly shows them how much they've put down, how much they still owe. It also shows all of the items, shows their name, and shows when they made their payment. So all the information that the customer needs is on this one printout rather than just showing a $50 payment in cash. Okay? So once you've given that to the customer walks out, they have their proof that they've placed the order with you. I don't necessarily like to call it a receipt because it's not really a receipt, it's just a printout of the sales order. Now, you can choose to generate a purchase order directly from the sales order. But I do want to caution you that Retail Pro is not going to combine multiple sales orders, even if they're all for the same vendor. It's not going to combine multiple sales orders into one purchase order. So if you have 4 different people during the day that all place a special order with you from a certain vendor, and you've generated the PO for that, you will have 4 separate POs that you'll either need to merge into one or send off to the vendor as 4 separate POs. Okay? If you do generate the PO, it will let you know that it's done that for you. And you do have the ability to view that PO and to make changes to it if you want. One nice thing about generating the PO from the sales order is that it does reference both the store that it was made at and the sales order number. So as this order goes through the process from the customer to the vendor, then back to you, then back to the customer, that reference, it's going to fully tie from order to purchase order to voucher to receipt. Okay, so That is one of the nice things about generating the purchase order, is that it does give you that cross-reference, okay? You are able to edit this, and you can add extra quantity to it if you want. You can add extra items to it if you want. Just remember to save when you're done, and when you're all done making any changes that you want, go ahead and click OK or Cancel. They're both going to bring you back to the same spot, and that's the sales order. So you've created the purchase order, okay, but you haven't sent it off to the vendor yet. Obviously, that needs to be sent off to the vendor, and once that's done, this sales order kind of gets put towards the back burner. There's nothing more that you can do with it at this point other than wait for it to come in, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and back out of here, and I'm going to create a new sales order, only this time, actually before I do that, I want to see if I have a special order SKU in my inventory. Okay, and I don't believe I do. I do not. Okay, so the first thing that you want to make sure you have, if you're going to do special orders, you need to make sure that you have a SKU that you can use for kind of a generic SKU. We've always referred to it as a jackpot row, or, you know, so I'm going to pick a number that's going to be easy to remember. So I'm just going to put it down. Normally, I like to put it on line 1 through 10, but since those are already taken, I'm going to scroll down to row 150, because 150 is a number I can remember, okay? So I'm going to click on New, and just like any other item that you enter into your inventory, you do have to assign it to a department. I'm going to make a new department for my special orders, okay? And you'll see where I'm going with this, okay? And over here, I'm going to put special order. Okay, we'll come down here, come down here, and put orders, okay? Save that, and that's the department that I want on this item. So now that I have my special department for it, now you could assign it to the department that it would normally be included in if it was any other item that you would normally bring into your store. So, you know, if you have a department that actually fits, you can put it in there. But remember, we're going to use this line over and over and over again. So when you create it, make it more generic and know that you will be able to change it at the time of actually creating the item, okay? So now in the vendor, I'm going to put Big Hairy Dog in there. My description, I am literally going to call it especially what it is, okay? Now, I'm actually going to put that in both my description 1 and my description 2. One of those fields typically holds your product number. The other one typically holds your description. But because I don't know what items I'm going to order or what descriptions I'm going to have, I'm going to put that in both of them. And beyond that, I'm going to leave everything else blank. No cost, no price. I'm just going to leave it as is and save it. Okay? So now that I know that I have that special order item, I'm going to back out to the main screen and go into POS and sales orders. And I'm going to make a new special order. So again, we have to have a customer name on there. Since we used Jane Doe the last time, I'm going to use my other customer this time. Okay? I'm not going to do anything with my date fields, but I know that it's going to prompt me for how did you hear about us? Okay? Now, I'm going to come down to the item number, and I'm going to put item number 150 because that's my special order row. And you'll see it comes up exactly like I expected it to, okay? Now, I can change this vendor code, and I apologize, I should have pointed this out. When you're creating your special order item, make a vendor code for your store. If you don't already have one, it's a good idea to have your store entered in as a vendor specifically for these types of things, okay? Now, maybe this vendor that I need to order from is not BHD. Maybe it's HAN, NES, okay? My product number is 1982, okay? I want that in blue, and I need it in a size 10, okay? Most importantly, make sure you put in the price that you're quoting the customer. So I'm quoting the customer a price of $87.99 for this item. Now, this has not changed my item number 150 in the inventory. It's only changed it on this one sales order, and that's the only place that this change has been seen, okay? But it lets you take care of the customer, let your cashier take care of the customer without giving them access to entering new inventory. We really don't want too many hands entering inventory, and we definitely don't want to give cashiers that kind of access. So that's why we use a generic line here instead of going into choose edit items and adding a new one right then and there. This allows the cashier to take down all the pertinent information that the buyer is going to need in order to order this product. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and save this. Okay, and now I'm going to take a deposit. And again, your system may be set up that it automatically takes you into the deposit screen and starts up a new one. My preferences are not set up that way. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say they're going to pay off the whole thing ahead of time. They planned to buy it today. I don't have it in stock. I have never carried it, but I will order it for them. But they want to pay for it today because they had planned to pay for it today. So I'm going to go to tender, and we'll just say that they're going to write a check for it. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and F11 and go back, and then I will get their printout. Okay, now I do recommend with special orders that we set you up to print 2 copies of special orders, one to go to the customer and one to go back to the buyer so they know what they have to create in inventory and they know what they have to order. So once I have that printout and I've given it to the customer and they walk out the door, I take that additional printout back to the buyer, put it in their inbox, their basket, whatever you decide you want to work out, okay? So what ends up happening, customer has walked out, the buyer has this slip, but before they can order it, they have to actually create a SKU so they can put that on the purchase order. You'll notice my line 150 doesn't show any of that information that was on the sales order. So the buyer is going to take that information. I'm just going to scroll up so I start using these lines. Okay. They're going to choose the department that it belongs in. And we're going to say their pants. The vendor is Hanes. The description 1 was 1982. The description 2, we'll just say cargo pants. Okay. They're blue and they were a size 10. And we quoted the customer $87.99. Now the buyer is going to know or be able to find out what the margin is on that item. So I'm going to say $42, and now it accurately reflects my margin. Once that item has been created by the buyer, they save this, and what they're going to do next, and this usually falls in the hands of the buyer to do. The buyer is then going to come out of here and go back into that special order, open it up in Form View and click Edit, and they're going to switch out item 150 for the item number they just created. So I typically write that down on the printout that they've been given. So even though it says item 150 on the printout, you can write the actual number that gets created right there next to it. And you type in whatever number that is and press enter, and you'll see that it hasn't affected the bottom line number at all. There's no new balance due. There's nothing different about this other than it has a different item number. everything else looks the same as it did on the printout that we gave the customer. Okay? The buyer then saves this, and then they can order this. They can generate the PO, just like we did on the customer order, and you have all the same pros and cons with generating the PO as we talked about earlier. Okay? So that gets ordered and sent off to the vendor. Now that special order is waiting for it to come in. Now let's say in the meantime, Jane Doe comes in, she just got paid, and she wants to make another payment on her order. So first I'm going to find her order. I will let you know bill to L name or last name is generally the easiest way to find the customer that you're looking for. So she comes in, you can click on the form view if you want to verify that this is in fact for that camp shirt. Okay, she ordered 4 of them. We're looking at the right order. So now I want to take another SO deposit. Do not click on the edit button when you go into form view. If you do, that SO deposit button is going to gray out. Okay, so you have to be in a non-editable sales order to take a deposit. So I'm going to go to SO deposit. I'm going to create another new deposit because it's a new payment, and I'm going to enter in how much she's paying this time. And again, she's going to pay another $50. Okay, I show how they're going to do that. Okay, and then I go ahead and I F11. I click on the back arrow key, and I give the customer a new printout so they have an accurate, up-to-date balance due. Okay? Now, the special order item that we ordered has come in, and the customer walks up to the counter, and they start talking with the cashier, and the cashier is typically sitting on the receipt screen. And they tell the cashier, I got a phone call from so-and-so, and they told me that my item is in. The pair of pants that I ordered is in. So the first thing that you're going to do is you can come up here to SO number, and you can reference the right sales order. I'm going to go with this. Actually, I'm going to go with the Jane Doe order. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So I've referenced that number, and you'll notice it automatically puts the name that's on the sales order onto the receipt, as well as the POS flags. That all carries over. Okay? It does everything but put the items onto the receipt. To get the items on the receipt, I'm going to come over here to SO items. Now, if you allow your customers to pick up partial orders, this method that I'm showing you now is the only way that you can do it. I'm going to show you a different method in a moment, but that other method is an all or nothing. You're selling everything or nothing. In this case, it shows what is due, and you can fill in the dot quantity with what they're actually picking up today. So even though 3 of the 4 came in, I can pick which 3 came in and then click OK. If everything came in and they're picking up everything, you can simply click on Sell Due, and it will fill in the quantities for you. You just simply click OK. It then brings those over. Now, you may notice that the total down here at the bottom is not reflecting the $100 payments that she's given us. So as soon as you click on the tender button, that's going to change. So when I click on tender, it's going to ask me use SO deposit. And I can honestly tell you, in almost 20 years of working with Retail Pro, I have never once had a customer tell a clerk, no, go ahead, you guys keep the deposit. So I don't even train cashiers to ask the customer, because this is one of those questions that you kind of expect to, say, here's your sign, because it's kind of a no-brainer. They're going to want to use their deposit. So typically, you're just going to click on yes here, and it's going to take that deposit off the top, and that's the way it's going to show up on their receipt, that we're applying their $100 deposit to the $127.96 they owe, leaving them with a $27.96 balance. You ask the customer, how would you like to pay for that today? And they say, I'm going to go ahead and pay cash, and I'm going to give you $30 for that. I'm going to type in the amount they give me and then click on cash. Okay. So it shows that they paid $30, but I'm going to give them $2.04 and change. And I'm going to go ahead and update this particular receipt. Okay. It reminds the cashier about the change that they owe the customer. Once the cashier has made the change, close the reminder window, and that's when you will get your printout of the receipt. Okay. Now that's method one for recording a sale. That allows you to pick and choose the items that you are selling to them if they've ordered more than one item. Okay? If they have ordered one item, then you can also come in here and you can say, okay, let me make sure that this is the right order. Okay, it is. I see that there's a zero balance due. I can record the sale right here using this button on the side. This is the all or nothing button. So if they had 10 items on here and they were only picking up 8 of them, by clicking on the record sale button, it would say that they picked up all 10 and it wouldn't show that you still owe them 2 items. Okay, so depending on your situation and how you work things with your orders, this may or may not be the best fit for you. I'm going to go ahead and record the sale here. It shows me who the cashier is going to be. I click OK. It's going to ask if you want to print a record of the receipt, and of course you want to print that for the customer. I'm going to click no right now because I don't need to print a receipt. And then it lets me know that it made receipt number 28, and those items have now come out of the inventory, and your quantities have been properly deducted, and your sales numbers have gone up by this amount. Okay? Now, let's say that you have someone come in that is there to pick up their items, but they still owe you some money. Okay? So this customer never put a deposit down at all. They still owe us $95.97. Well, before we record the sale, we want to make sure and take their deposit. So I'm going to go to SO Deposits, click on New. That's the amount that they owe us, and I'm not going to turn over the merchandise until they pay it. I go to the tender screen. I show how they pay for that, and then I update it. I go back to my sales order, and now I can record the sale. Okay. I'm actually going to record the sale through the receipt screen to show you what it would look like if you didn't receipt everything. So I'm going to go into a new receipt. I'm going to reference my sales order. Okay. Click OK. I know it's past the cancel date. I'm not concerned about that. Now I'm going to grab the SO items, and I'm going to say that the 212s came in, but the 26 did not come in. So once my dot quantity matches what I'm physically selling to them today or giving to them today, I'm going to click OK. Okay, so it shows you their balance for those 2 items. When I go to the tender screen, because they have paid for it in full, it's going to say use SO deposit. I'm going to say yes. It's going to take only as much of that deposit as it needs. They gave us a $97 deposit. For these 2 items, I only need $63.98 of it. So their deposit fully covers their pickup of these items. Now, it could happen that they've given you a deposit, but their deposit is not enough to cover what they owe you for this. Okay? So if that was the case, it would look very similar to like the other one that we did through the receipt screen, in that they still owe you a balance. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and F11 and update that, and those sales are now recorded. So when I go back and I look, I can see this one shows split because it was split between the cash and the deposit. If I go to this one, the deposit covered it all. Now, when that size 26 comes in, you can either go to the record sale button or you can reference it here because it's fully paid for, so it doesn't matter where you do it from. I'm going to go ahead and do it here. Still shows there's a deposit in there. And when I come here and I go to SO items, you'll see the other items that they already picked up are showing in the quantity sent column. If I click on sell due, only the one item that's still outstanding is going to get a number there. I click OK. I then go to the tender screen and use the last little bit of their deposit, and that covers the pickup, and I go ahead and I update. Okay? So any questions about that process at all? Okay? Well, I'm going to go ahead and move on. I do want to show you a few settings that you might find are helpful. So in options and system preferences, I'm going to go to point of sale and then highlight sales orders. This is where you can set up what percentages you would like to take as a deposit. Now, if I put in 20 here, but I do not check the require box, it will suggest a 20% deposit, but it will not force me to give a 20% deposit. It won't let me, it'll make me make a deposit, but and it will let me make more than 20%, but it won't force me to take a deposit. Whereas if I set this to say 100% and I require it, this require box is what's going to make that automatic pop-up of the deposit screen where I kept clicking new. This would set it to where that automatically came up with their 100% deposit. Okay? So that's kind of the difference between the two. Now with this 20%, if they want to give you 50%, far be it from us to turn away money. But if they wanted to give you 19%, they would not be able to. The computer would tell you that they have to give you at least 20%. Okay? Now, if you want the flexibility to pick and choose what amount they give you, then don't set a percentage here at all. That way you can pick and choose what amount they give you. Now, a couple of other settings that I want to point out that I noticed on my system were not set up properly is where is it? This right here, require record sale. Mine is set to any time, but we do, as a general rule here at Big Hairy Dog, we do generally recommend that you do it after the final deposit. Now, the reason for that is when you record the sale, that takes that item out of your inventory. And it shows that you no longer have that item. But if you have not yet received that item and you take it out of your inventory at the time the order is placed with the customer, that item is going to sit there in your inventory with a negative quantity because it thinks you sold something that you didn't actually have to sell. If you have that item and you record the sale when that item first comes in from the vendor, which I have a few customers that do that as well, then it will show that that item came out of your inventory on the day it got received, even though it may be another week and a half, 2 weeks before the customer actually comes and gets it from you. So generally, as a general rule, the trainers here train people to record the sale after the final deposit. I actually take it a step further. I want you to record the sale after they've made their final payment and they've taken possession of it. I want it to come out of your inventory when it actually leaves your store. So now that does cause some issues, especially with layaway orders, where maybe you want to show those coming out of your inventory at the time that they place the layaway. Even though they haven't taken possession of it, they're not technically available to sell. And that would be one of the reasons that we would set this to any time, so you could do layaways at that moment in time, but do special orders and customer orders after they take possession. So, but again, that's strictly between you and your trainer, something to discuss with your trainer. Now, those are the settings in here that really primarily affect sales orders. If you are a multi-store situation, sales orders can be shared between your stores. They can be started at one store and finished in another store, as long as you have all of your stores listed here in your processing stations. So we need one that says Maine. We might have one here that says 001A. I have 002A. So I have three different stores. Well, apparently I don't. Oh. Okay. Yep, it's not letting me do it because I'm not licensed for it. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So I have these stores. It is important that on the sales order, if you start the sales order at one location, but the customer maybe lives closer to another one of your locations, and they actually want to pick it up at that location, when you make the sales order, make sure that you change the process at. So this right here needs to be changed to the store that needs to work it after this initial setup. Whoever the process at is will get a copy of this sales order. The Maine gets a copy of everything, but the store that you change it to gets a copy of this order, and once they have their copy, they're the only ones that can go in and take a deposit, add items to it, do anything with it, including recording the sale. Okay? So if you have multiple stores, this process at is how you can share the workload between those stores. Keep in mind that whoever the process at store is the store that's going to get credit for the sale. So even though you may have started that sales order and spent a good hour with that customer finding the right item that they're looking for and placing the order, because they want to pick it up at your other store and the process at gets changed, when they record the sale, one, you need to make sure that the buyer orders it for that store and it gets shipped or transferred to that store, but that store is going to get the sales credit for it. I know it doesn't sound fair, but that's the way that it works. So now those are the system preferences that I wanted to show you. There are also a couple of workstation preferences that play into the sales orders. And so when you click on New in Sales Orders, you may not want to have it pop up all 5 choices. If you don't offer a store company registry, you may decide that you don't want, gotta remember where it's at, there you go, that you don't want store registry and company registry to even come up as an option. Or maybe you don't offer layaways. So we can uncheck any sales order type that you don't want to be available to the cashiers. And that's done on a workstation by workstation basis. So if you have 3 or 4 point of sales, you need to set this up at each one, because you don't want workstation 1 only giving you 2 choices and workstation 3 giving you 5. So by unchecking those boxes, when I go into POS and sales orders and I click on the New button, I only get the 2 choices that I want them to have. Okay? So that's the way that you can gray out the other ones. Now, once you'll notice this one down here shows a little checkbox down here. And the reason for this one having a checkbox and the rest not having it is this is the one that we actually use the record sale button in the sales order. So if you use that button, it is going to flag it in this column. Now that doesn't mean that these were not recorded, they just weren't recorded using that button. So that's why I always tell you, look for the zeros in the deposit, balance due, and the unfilled percent. Now, once you have zeros in those 3 columns, feel free to delete this sales order. You have the receipt that was created. That is a permanent record of what they had you order and what they picked up. The order is no longer necessary. Okay? That order process has been completed. So just like you do with your purchase orders with your vendors, once you've received the product in, you don't need the purchase order anymore. Once you've given the customer their purchase, their merchandise, you don't need the sales order anymore. So you can go ahead and delete it. And if you're a little concerned about deleting it, that you might want to look back at it, go ahead and archive it. Even if you don't think that you'd ever have a reason to look at this sales order again, you never know when this customer may call up and say, you know what, I need to order a couple more pairs of those pants. They're great. I love the way they fit, blah, blah, blah. So if you've archived it, all you have to do is unarchive it and change a few fields on it, and you've got a new sales order. So it never hurts to archive. Unfortunately, there is no way to highlight multiple sales orders and delete them all en masse. So I usually train cashiers that if the customer picks up their entire order, make the final step of that process as they're walking out the door, go into the sales order and delete it and archive it. Okay? That way you only have a list of sales orders that you're actively working. If the customer has paid for them in full and they've been picked up, you're not actively working that anymore. It's a done deal. Okay? So any questions about anything that I've covered today? Because that's about all I have for you. Okay? Brian, any questions about anything Retail Pro related? Since it's just you and I right now, I'll open it up for any questions at all. Okay then, well, I'm going to go ahead and close it down then. So this webinar, I don't know if you caught this at the beginning of the webinar or not. I know you came in just a couple minutes late, but this webinar has been recorded and it will be up on our YouTube channel, hopefully by the end of the day. You should also receive an email with a link to that YouTube. So if there's anything that you wanted to review or you wanted to have a staff member watch it and they weren't able to sit in today, know that there will be a recording up on YouTube within the next 24 hours. I want to thank you for joining me today, and feel free to sign up for any upcoming webinars that pique your interest, anything that you might want to review again, and have a great day. Thank you so much.